Welcome to this next edition of Smart Levers, and today we are talking about something from the world of mathematics, right, Raman? We're going to talk about inversion, or is it pictures and photographic films? What are we talking about when we
Yeah,
say
it's the
inversion?
opposite of all the things that you said so far.
Oh, okay.
So, Harish, let me start by asking you, if you look at this episode, what are the things that you hope will not happen? If this was a terrible episode, what would have happened?
The jokes did not work. People did not understand what we were talking about, and we just, couldn't. Our voices didn't come through. The recording went bad.
Correct.
We were not able to explain things properly. Nobody understood, what inversion is at the end of the session.
Right. So this will also remind some of our listeners about a topic called pre-mortem that we've discussed in a previous episode. So great. Thank you for just finding all the different ways something like this could go wrong. And so the idea behind inversion is to take this inverted lens. When we plan a new idea, when we propose something, uh, or when we want to reach a goal, sometimes we do what is sort of a positive way of looking at it. We say, how do we get to our goal? And an interesting insight that has come from, I think, the investing community and people who have studied decision making. Someone like Charlie Munger, very famous investor, has popularized this idea of inversion, is to really ask the question of if you where is it that you don't want to go. That's an equally powerful way of looking at this landscape, in addition to asking where do you want to go. So in fact, there is a very famous story called Appointment in Samara, in which there is I won't spoil it for our listeners, but the idea is that if you don't want to die, what should you do, right? You should find out the bullet that has your name on it and try and avoid it. So that's the idea behind inversion. If you're trying to make a lot of money, if you're trying to hit a particular goal, it is also very useful to ask what is the opposite of that and how do I stay away from that scenario. So if you're creating an episode like this, in addition to asking what are the success parameters, we can also ask what are the things that would be bad for this, and just stay away from those jokes, those questions, and those kinds of problems. And the rest will take care of itself, because it's easier to do avoidance than to do something prospective in nature.
I'm also reminded of many of our mythological stories, right? Of how, if you go back to the Mahabharat stories, how Kans figured that this is going to be the one boy who's going to kill me. So just keep killing every baby, and make sure that that bullet which is going to come and kill me is never made. It doesn't get
Correct.
into the gun. Something like that. The
Correct.
so
Yeah.
how can we apply the principle of inversion in our day-to-day life, without getting into killing people?
So, so the principle is that of failure avoidance, right? Instead of chasing success. So first of all, we recognize these are two separate things. That sometimes avoiding failure can help you survive and stay alive long enough to get lucky. In your day-to-day life, add this as part of your decision-making process. Uh, so we've spoken about decision making in the past. There are books like Decisive which have been written about it. And so every team, every individual, every company ideally needs a decision making process where they go through a series of steps to try and understand the pitfalls of a decision, understand different options you have in a decision. And so inversion should be an element as part of that. So we did a pre-mortem at the beginning of this episode. And so you can do inversion and pre-mortem as part of your decision making. So it's not like an individual element on its own. You cannot base your entire strategy just merely on avoiding things and just being inactive. That's not the goal here. The goal is that you can actively stay away from the kinds of situations that are harmful to you, and then you can also actively go towards situations that are have a good chance of being beneficial for you. So that's the message behind this. If you were to apply it to something like curiosity, a curiosity diet, something we've spoken about earlier, wherein look at all the different sources of information in your life. Now we know that I want to be more better at my job. I need to read more about things that are shaping my world. So I recommended that, go follow this person on Twitter, or read this particular book. At the same time, there are also behaviors I should be avoiding because they eat into this time that I have for my curiosity diet and don't let me do what I want to do. So, an example for a lot of people could be just mindlessly scrolling on Twitter, or suddenly you've lost a lot of time browsing on Wikipedia. So, don't go there. Just block that self. Maybe deactivate your Twitter account if it was an extreme case. And that's an example of how both put together can enrich your curiosity diet, one by avoidance and by one it makes space for all the things you desire to
Right. So this reminds me again of the notion of the positive and negative film of a photograph, right? Back in the day when they used to be actually made, and then
do.
we
Correct.
used to have physical photos. So it's important to know what the positive and the negative looks like, and then go to the positive. You should know what the negative is, and that's where I don't want to go. And I think all
Yeah.
the other examples that you gave also are
I'll
useful
just add
here.
one quick example. Something like editing, the process of editing your own writing. You're actually stripping away things that you don't like about it. So usually a lot of editing advice is through the what you should eliminate. You eliminate the passive voice, you eliminate long words, you eliminate long sentences. So you can divide your process of writing in two phases. Don't mix them up. The first is where you want to go towards. This is what I want to express, and then a next phase, which is your editing phase, which is what I want to avoid or what I want to now strip away. So a two-step process like this with both inversion and the positive side of it can come together as a much more, it brings you closer to your goal, uh, as opposed to just doing what it takes to go towards your goal.
On that note, Ramanand, you've also put the idea of a future Smart Liver episode where we will just talk about tips for writing. We'll do that in a separate episode, but for now, I think this was great, and we will end this episode before I get tempted to make more bad jokes. Thank you.